We're back on the Bleacher Report app, and that means that Ohio State's game just wrapped up. Ohio State over OU in what was a sloppy win, but still a decent-sized margin win. I'm Chris Drew. That's my guy, Ron James. Ron, how the heck are you this evening, this night, I guess?
Yeah, a little tired, but I am doing great. You know the best thing about being 3-0.
The chance to go 4-0, and that's what Ohio State has a chance to do heading into the bye week. But we did have a game today that was not as pretty as the game last week. Obviously, a little bit better of an opponent, but we did have some takeaways. Ron, were you surprised by the early fight that OU had and kind of I guess maybe the forced sloppiness or regular sloppiness that Ohio State had?
I'm not that surprised because we knew this was going to be a step up in competition. Yeah, it's a MAC opponent, but we saw Rutgers struggle in week 1 against this OU team. We see OU go out and beat West Virginia, who just got a big win against rival Pitt. This isn't a bad OU team. They won their conference for a reason last year, and I thought this was a great test for the Buckeyes going into this Washington game. A lot to work on going into the bye week. I'm glad that it wasn't just a blowout. Plenty to think about, and it's going to be a rough week of practice for the Buckeyes, given the performance that they put out there. They get the win of 37-9, but the Buckeyes struggled, and it wasn't exactly pretty to start.
Yeah, no, it's wild because usually when you watch a game and feel like your team's really struggling, and then you look up and you see they won by 30, it's like, okay, maybe I'm being a little bit too hard on this team. But I feel like, Ron, I don't know about you, I feel like this Ohio State team played really flat to start. By the time they try to get it going, I mean, here we go. They won the game. I don't want to take that away. They won the game. When they did try to get it going, it just felt underwhelming. Not that this team isn't a great team, but it's like, okay, on Saturdays, we just want your best foot. But again, maybe this is what they need to kind of not feel that invincible heading into the bye week. Because after the bye week, you got Washington, and Washington's a really good football team. So, not the prettiest or the most fun watch. And honestly, coming off the heels of a 70-0 victory, it's not great. But I do want to start with one of the positive things, Big Dog. Bo Jackson, back-to-back 100-yard games. He's the best back on the roster, isn't he? That's what we learned today, right? That he's the best back on the roster.
I don't know if we learned it today, but we saw it today. Bo Jackson out there completely balling, the first running back since Dallin Hayden to go back-to-back 100-yard games as a true freshman. A surprising back-to-back because we figured this was going to be James Peoples' opportunity to secure this job before the Washington game, and Bo Jackson goes out there and rips it from right out under him and puts up another 100-yard performance, and he did it pretty early into the game. 9 carries for 109 yards, 12.1 yards per carry, and a long of 64 yards. The only question I got about Bo Jackson right now is how long until they start letting him get some red zone touches, because the Buckeyes have struggled in the red zone in the running game as well, and Bo Jackson seems to be the answer. He provides something to this offense that we've talked about on this program for years in regards to Travion Henderson and his big play explosion and home run ability, and the times that it's bailed the Buckeyes out. And it felt like just when the Buckeyes needed a spark on offense, Bo Jackson was the guy to give it to him from the running back position by adding a couple of explosive runs this game.
Yeah, Bo is so fascinating because like Trey, he does give you the home run ability, but also he's got much better pacing and will let blocks set up. And he's got really good feet. Doesn't trip over his own feet, and he'll let blocks set up. Like Bo, this 100-yard game, I think will go a long way because it wasn't like last week. It was not a garbage time 100-yard game. This game, while not, I never felt like OSU was in danger of losing. It wasn't blowout central when he went out there and became the focal point of the offense. I do think there was a very telling moment last week when Ryan Day was really ripping Bo Jackson apart from the TV copy, it looked like, for essentially a fumble. And I think that might be the one thing that they want to do and sure up, I guess, before they let him be the red zone back. Right now, CJ Donaldson is doing a good enough job in the red zone that it's not super pressing, but I think that Bo Jackson does everything better running back wise than CJ and than James Peoples. I'm ready to give him the keys to the car in the next 2 weeks.
Maybe we give him the keys to the Lambo. We talked about nicknames, and a guy that has many of options of names to go by He goes by Bo Jackson. His real name is Lamar Jackson. He has plenty of NFL greats to go by, but I think he should carve his own path and go by Lambo Jackson, especially with the performances that he's putting up. And we've gone with car nicknames before
Yes, we
around
have.
here at Ohio State. We had Honda McCord, we had Maserati Marv, and it looks like we have Lambo Jackson now.
He looks and feels the part, and really the question is gonna be how long can they keep him as the number 2? Because I think he's elevated to number 2 now, right?
I think he's the number one back at this
Okay.
point. I don't know how you argue it. And I think James Peoples showed the type of role that he can provide for this team late in the game when you saw him kind of, we call them the master T carries. When the defense is all tired and this guy comes in, it's like, why isn't he starting? It's like, well, because he doesn't look like this when the defense isn't tired. But when a defense has to try to tackle him when they are tired, you see James Peoples have some of the most effective running that we've seen out of him this season.
We started with the very good. I think Bo is the player of the game. I do want to talk about something that's kind of plagued Ohio State teams in the past, and I'm hoping that it does not pop up this year too much. I hope this is more of a blip in the radar. They struggled in the red zone today, Ron, and that's what made the first half of this game feel very, very frustrating.
Absolutely. You saw issues at the right guard position. Tegra Shabola gets pulled from the game, and you see Ethan Onua take over at that spot. You saw running backs have issues getting into the red zone. Julian Sayin looked uncomfortable in the red zone. And I put Brian Hartline on this graphic because I feel like this has more to do with play calling than what normally plagues Ohio State in the red zone, which has been physicality in the past. We have a big power back. They said it a million times on the broadcast that Ryan Day calls CJ Donaldson his hammer, and the Buckeyes weren't able to hammer it in really in the red zone. And that's why I question, do you think Bo Jackson could add an element to this red zone offense? You saw Brandon Ennis on one of the second down plays wide open. Julian
Yeah.
Sayin just looked him off and went through his progression and got to the other side of the field faster than Brandon Ennis was able to get open. Just a couple of miscues that you saw in the red zone. But the thing about this game that I felt most comfortable about leaving the game was a lot of the things that we saw the Buckeyes have issues with seem very correctable. And I think they're going to be able to
Agreed.
get this play calling right the more they get comfortable with their personnel. I saw someone in the chat mention that they're playing 3 tight ends. You see Jelani Thurman in there. I text you during the second quarter. I'm like, we got 3 tight ends with catches already, and it's not even halftime. I feel as they become more familiar with this personnel, they'll get things right in the red zone, but they're still working through things at running back. They're still playing a ton of tight ends. I think once they get more familiar with this personnel, we'll see more success in the red zone.
Same, I'm curious. I'm curious what your thoughts are. Like, do you want to see more red zone fades to Jeremiah early in downs to try to see if he can steal you a touchdown before getting kind of down there, or do you want this to be a real ground and pound red zone team?
I may be in the minority here. I hate the red zone fade. I think it's a
Okay.
very playground type of play. Like, oh, we got the best player. Let's just throw it up to him. And yeah, in theory, that sounds cool. But the major reason why the Buckeyes were able to have so much success last year during that national championship run was their ability to run the ball in the red zone. And I want to see the Buckeyes go out there, line up where everybody knows that they're running the ball and push someone back and get in the end zone. And I don't think the Buckeyes have done that with success this season. And I think that's something that they're going to need to work on.
It's like the Ryan Day quote that keeps like coming back around. He's like, what is it? I want everybody in the stadium, the other team, to know we're going to run the ball, and I want to still be able to run the ball. It feels like they're not quite there yet, which is fascinating because like at times this offensive line feels like some real road graders, but today it just didn't feel right. And I don't know if it was a juice issue. I don't know if it's because fans didn't follow instructions and wear gray t-shirts into the horseshoe. Like I don't know what it is, but it was kind of frustrating watching some of the red zone play calling. But I mean, when we think about Ryan Day and Brian Hartline, who's the new OC, you would think that the red zone play calling is going to be the last thing to come to him, right? Like that's a wide receiver coach. Like red zone play calling, you have to be so good at run game. You have to be so creative. You have to understand that. I think that it makes sense that the last thing to kind of come together for Brian Hartline would be red zone play calling.
Absolutely. And you saw what Brian Hartline's solution was for the red zone. I'm just not going to get in the red zone.
Yeah.
I'll just throw 50-yard touchdowns to my 5-star wide receivers. Oh, I can't score in the red zone? Fine. I'm just going to score as soon as I cross the 50. And if that's not the most Brian Hartline approach to red zone struggles I've ever seen, I don't know what is. It was great to see the Buckeyes find a way to get in the end zone, but you would like to see them shore up these red zone struggles. And I saw a lot of people on Twitter, ready to get rid of Brian Hartline and criticizing his play calling. And it's like, we already watched him beat Texas week 1 with everything on the line, and Ryan Day didn't feel the need to grab the play sheet. I hardly think Ryan Day is reaching for the play sheet against OU. You see the Buckeyes get it right on offense. And I'm glad that you saw them sleepwalk a little bit coming off a 70-point win over Grambling. I'm glad the Buckeyes have some bad film that they just put out there, that the coaching staff can't let them get complacent before they travel out to Washington for a huge road game to start conference play.
100% agree. I mean, obviously, like anything you can do to keep this team humble and hungry, right? 2 keywords: humble and hungry. I think that's really important for them. And I think that at the end of the day, when you look at every national champion over the last 20 years, they all have those games that are closer and feel sloppier than they should be. I mean, we saw it from Bama, we saw it from Georgia, we saw it from Clemson. Clemson almost lost to North Carolina and Sam Howell with Trevor Lawrence. Like we've seen teams have these
we
weird
saw the
clunker
Nebraska game last year for the national championship Buckeyes. We saw the Michigan game. Like
it
not every game's
happened.
pretty.
You cannot be a juggernaut from one to the end of the year all year. It just does not work that way, especially with college kids. I do want to talk about scoring from outside the red zone. The guy, the man, I mean, the best player in the sport, Jeremiah Smith. Doug, I mean, is he doing enough right now to make sure he gets that slot headed to New York? He had the one very deep ball from Julian Sayin that I thought floated in the air for forever, but the kid made a great play on the ball, and then they gave him the ball in the end around. It feels like whenever you need to jumpstart your offense, who do you go to?
You throw it to four's down there somewhere. And I felt like that's what the offensive game plan turned into. Like, okay, this game's a little closer than we want. We're just going to spam 4. And it looked beautiful. And I felt like the end around was just a cherry on top type of Heisman addition for the stat book. If I had any gripe on that play, it's like, can we make that a touch pass instead of an end around? Let's get that a touchdown pass.
A receiving touchdown.
In a receiving touchdown for Jeremiah Smith. He goes out there and has 9 catches for 153 yards, a touchdown receiving along the 47, and then adds a rushing touchdown on the ground for 17 yards. That was one of my favorite plays of the game to watch, though, to see all 3 big guys leading the charge in front of him, and Jeremiah really didn't need to get touched and still went out of his way to get the contact in the red zone.
I was going to say, it felt like he didn't need to make the contact at the end. It felt like it's like, okay, I'm Jeremiah Smith. I'm running full steam ahead. Someone's going to have to feel me. Pause. And so when we saw the end around right there, it was like, okay, like, Jeremiah, you could cut inside and avoid the hit entirely, big dog, right? Like he could have, like Ronnie could have avoided the hit entirely there.
That was one of those, I'm thinking about those tough summer workouts with Nick where I'm putting on an extra 5 pounds of muscle for a reason, and Jeremiah is going to put his contact into the game. So to see him go out there and be physical even when he doesn't need to, as he's just stat padding towards the end of the game, you love that physicality. You wish you would have seen a little bit more from the team in general at the beginning of the game. And it wasn't even a lack of physicality. I think it was just a lack of juice. And you watch the skull session and they talked a good game. It still came out a little flat.
And that was always a chance of happening. First game of the year, Ron, where Ohio State had 2 receivers go over 100 yards, right? Or did they have that last week?
2 receivers go over 100 yards? I don't believe that happened last week.
Okay, well, this week we had Carnell Tate had 101, averaging 20 yards per catch, and then Jeremiah Smith at 153. It is clear that is the Batman and Robin. Myself, I was one of the people that thought that maybe we would see a world where Ennis was the 2. Ennis is 100% not the 2. Ennis is the 3. And in the history of Ohio State, generally speaking, that number 3 guy is out there being a cardio warrior and a decoy. Not saying they're a bad player, not saying they're just not getting open. They're getting open. I'm more saying their job is to free things up for the other 2. And that's kind of what I'm seeing with Carnell Tate. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. And then our guy Matt in the chat said, they're out there playing 3 tight ends. When you have Jelani Thurman, Will Kazmarek, and Max Clare all integral parts of the passing game. We've seen seasons before where we've watched great wide receivers at Ohio State not be a major part of the offense. People forget Jamison Williams started
Yeah,
an entire season at Ohio State, and he might as well have been wearing an invisibility cloak out there because they weren't throwing him the ball. It's
not
like,
at all.
Jamison, go run them off out of the play, and we're going to get the ball to Garrett and Chris. And I feel like you're seeing that again with Brandon Ennis. When people rewatch the All 22 film, I think you'll see how often Brandon Ennis is open and just not getting the ball. And it just speaks to the amount of weapons that the Buckeyes have on this team. And you can't emphasize that anymore by the fact that they're getting 3 tight ends involved in every game, when last year we used to get on these post games and say, well, it was the G. Scott game. Oh, it was the Will Kazmarek game. Oh, it was the Jelani Thurman game, because only one tight end ever really got involved last year. And shouts out to Coach Key and Brian Hartline. It has become a huge part of this pass offense.
Do you think this team is going to need to add a third receiver, productivity wise, to unlock their offense fully, or do you think they can unlock their offense fully while using the tight ends and the number one and number two receiver?
I think it's going to be using the number 1 and number 2 wide receiver as well as the tight ends. When you
Okay.
think about that third receiver position, I feel like you're going to see Brandon Ennis make his marks in games where they decide you're going to have to throw it to Brandon Ennis. And we
Yeah.
saw that in the Penn State game. And what did he do? Play serviceably and
Yeah.
score a
That's
touchdown in that game. So when teams dictate that it's going to be a Brandon Ennis game, I think that's when you're going to see him have his largest performances. But as long as they're letting Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate run past them, and you have these tight ends just running wide open through the defense, I don't think you're going to see a ton from Brandon Ennis.
I do want to flip over to the defensive side of the ball, talk about them for a little bit. A certain number 92, I think, secured himself as must play as much as possible this game.
I think you
These
could
two
make
were fantastic.
I think you can make the argument that Caden Curry's been the best defensive lineman for the Buckeyes this season, a guy that felt a little bit forgotten after you saw the ACC stats of Bo Atkinson in the transfer portal, and everybody automatically penciled him in as the starter. You see Caden Curry get to start this week. You've seen the energy that he's played with. He put on weight because he was a
Yeah.
guy that they wanted to get reps at nose tackle in some of these rushman packages, and you still see him moving sideline to sideline with elite athleticism. You can't say enough about the performances that Caden Curry has put on film. And then you look at Caden McDonald, a guy that has been an integral piece of the Buckeyes red zone defense. Tons of struggles with the red zone offense, not an issue with this red zone defense, a large part because of Caden McDonald and his ability to take on double teams and clog up that interior. You see Bo Atkinson get involved in the action this week. I think Bo Atkinson played his best game in a Buckeye uniform, and to see Caden Curry playing the best snaps of his career right now at defensive end, and then see Bo Atkinson start to take a step, I'm really excited about what we saw from the defensive line this game. One of the things that we talked about coming into this game was wanting to see the Buckeyes be able to stop the run and be able to contain Parker Navarro, the guy that had 180 rushing yards coming into the game. And I mean, they lay the hammer on him early in the game, and you don't see him come back until the second half. The Buckeyes were able to hold him to just 3 yards on the ground rushing after putting up 80 plus in his first 2 starts. Chris, how impressed were you with the Buckeyes game plan and ability to contain the Ohio running offense?
Really impressed because Parker's kind of a challenge, man. And like the thing that's kind of plagued Ohio State for a while has been like the running quarterbacks. Because, Ohio State has guys that are supremely athletic and sometimes they're not the most disciplined, in their lanes, and guys get green grass in front of them. Parker's a really good athlete. Don't get it twisted. The fact that this Ohio State team had 4 sacks, 7 tackles for loss, and 4 pass deflections means that they were being very, very sound. They were closing gaps when need be, and they were getting their hands on the football. Those are 3 keys to success. Because even when Ohio felt like they were like gaining yards, I guess. I mean, you look at the final stat sheet and they had under 115 yards passing and under 70 yards rushing. So that's like a huge win for them. And I know we talked about Caden Curry doing a great job out there, McDonald doing a great job. Arvo Reese is the best player not named Caleb Downs in this defense. Like Arvo Reese is unbelievable, and he's everywhere. And we're seeing him start to kind of see an uptick in speed. He had 7 total tackles, 2 solo tackles, a sack, a tackle for loss, and a pass deflection. And I thought he deserved credit for that forced fumble that ended up going out of bounds. But we're talking about a defense that, again, Patricia's not taking any time off. Like they're going after everybody, and so it was really good to see. I thoroughly enjoyed watching kind of this defense work through some things. I think that is really important. So for me, at least, this defense is multiple enough and deep enough that I feel really excited going into the bye week. There was one play that kind of bugged me, the Lorenzo Styles play. I mean, not making the tackle right there, and then he ended up leaving the game a little bit later, injured after a different play. Are you worried at all about this secondary, the slot role in particular, as we continue to face better receivers and we kind of jump into Big Ten play in 2 weeks?
No, I mean, you saw Lorenzo Styles look serviceable against the wide receiver core
At
at
Texas.
Texas. I mean, Texas, it hasn't looked like world beaters since that game, but definitely competent talent at the wide receiver position out there. That just felt like a missed tackle. He didn't get his head around, and that has been an issue in years past for these Buckeye cornerbacks. He did contest. I mean, you saw that he was looking at the receiver's eyes because he did
Yeah.
get his hands up at the right time and anticipated that pass, just wasn't able to get his hands on the ball. And then not being able to get the tackle, that was probably the most frustrating part of the play. I don't think the completion was that bad. He had good coverage. It was the fact that he wasn't able to get him down to the ground. And that was shades of Cam Brown and things that we saw in the
Yeah.
Michigan game in years past. So it felt like, that flashback meme when you think about some of the things that we've seen when we had lesser talent at the cornerback position. But as far as concerns, not really, because I've seen Lorenzo Styles now do it for 2 seasons. He's looked good for the most part this year. And I'm a big fan of the guy behind him. I think Bryce West would be more than competent coming in there, but you saw what the
What they
replacement
did,
was when Lorenzo Styles went down. They brought in Devin Sanchez on the outside and
and then kick
bumped
Jermaine.
Jermaine into nickel. What were your
Well,
thoughts
dang,
there with that
take my
decision?
next question away from me, Ron.
I'm
My
sorry.
next no, no, you're good. I'm just giving you a hard time, big dog. We've been hosting for forever now. You know how this goes. My next question is, do you like Jermaine Matthews in that nickel role? Do you think that'll play long term? Because I personally love Devin outside, and I thought maybe they might mess around with Igbinosun inside, who got his first holding penalty. Sorry for the jinx. But would you rather see Jermaine Matthews that inside spot, or do you think that more had to do with the fact that Ohio's best receiver was a slot receiver?
um, I think it has more to do with they like Jermaine's tackling ability at
Okay.
that slot position. And they said that's one of the reasons why the NFL is so enamored with Jermaine Matthews. I was listening to Mina Kimes earlier this week, and she said a lot of people don't realize how much that nickel corner position has
Just a tad.
changed
Yeah.
in the game of football. It used to be your smallest, least talented corner, and you just put them out there, and that's your third corner that you put on the field. And now in the NFL, with so many teams putting their best receiver in the slot, has become one of the most important positions on the defense. So to see a guy like Jermaine Matthews with first round aspirations get the opportunity to rep at the nickel position, I don't think it's bad. But I do like Lorenzo Styles
Yeah.
in that position the most, because the one thing that I think keeps Bryce West off the field, while he may be the better pure nickel, I think Lorenzo Styles provides something to this defense that Matt Patricia really likes, and that's his versatility and ability to play all three safety positions, because
Yeah.
that lets them be significantly more multiple and disguise their coverages better, because they can play Lorenzo at any of those three safety positions and feel comfortable. And I'm not sure that they're quite there yet with Bryce.
Yeah, I do think Bryce, like, overall is more talented, like, a little bit faster, probably more athletic, but Lorenzo, it kind of offers that super utility part of it, can play every spot, like you said. And he also brings, like, a level of attitude that I think is kind of underrated, that I'm not sure that Bryce, West has his voice yet on that front. I was disappointed to see the tackling blunder there. I wondered if he was trying to punch the ball out, and that's kinda what happened, on the missed tackle, or if it was just, like, a bad angle right there.
I think that stiff arm just kept him away from it. I rolled my
Yeah.
eyes there for a second because how dare we doubt the attitude of a Glenville
No, no.
kid?
Wait, it's more the like attitude towards the rest of the team, not attitude to the DBs is more I'm talking
Yeah,
more what I'm referring to.
more of a
Trust me,
lead.
I know about that Glenville attitude a little bit too much. I got ripped a new one in that office, and I was just the tech guy. So I definitely know how that goes. But I like Lorenzo, and I'm hopeful that Lorenzo has nothing wrong. But if he does have to miss some time,
Oh, he was back in the game before the end of the game.
yeah, but we know how this Ohio State thing works. Like, come on. But no, 2 weeks, you're 100% right. I do want to say Logan George, we saw our first action of him, was in on a couple tackles. I don't know how much he'll play. He it will be a serviceable depth piece, but he was in on some tackles, flashed a little bit. That number 48 is disgusting, though.
Not loving the 48, but just to see Logan George get his first action for the Buckeyes was exciting to see, and I think it just continues to add to the depth on this defensive line and the level of competition. You see, we didn't talk about it, but Tywon Malone gets to start at defensive tackle. Edric Houston, not a great game, and you saw a cool moment before the game started with Matt Patricia and Edric Houston hugging each other before the game started. So not sure what they talked about, but just to see that, hey, you have to earn every snap on this defense, and to know that, hey, if you go out there and play bad against Grambling, even the opponent 70-0, nothing's guaranteed around here. Even if you're a 5-star D tackle and we have the depth pieces, and to see them comfortable enough to put Tywon Malone out there in a game that was rather close, and to see him out there and in a game where we knew the stopping the run was going to be important, and not really notice him really give up any big plays or huge gaps, I thought that was a good performance by Tywon Malone.
How would you grade Julian Sayin's Saturday? He went 25 for 32, 347 yards, which is a season high for him. 3 touchdowns, but 2 interceptions, and he took his first sack of the year. How would you grade the Julian outing?
Giving Julian a C plus. One of the big things that we gave Julian credit for was protecting the ball, and Ryan Day applauded his decision making, and one of the main reasons why he won this job. And it was great the first 2 weeks. And we talked preseason about what was your biggest concern about Julian Sayin, and it's his decision making under pressure. He gets happy feet, but as long as he's throwing the ball away or making good decisions, that's fine. It felt like both of the picks were borderline fluky, but at the end of the day, you have to protect them. And you know what NFL scouts are going to say? Well, he's a little short. Those balls get batted down at the line of scrimmage. So, I mean, that plays a little bit into it, but it felt like Ryan Day said coming out of the Texas game, we could put a little bit more on his plate. I really like the way he handled it. Felt like they might have overloaded his plate with one extra scoop too much.
Yeah.
It felt like the Buckeyes went out there and asked Julian to do a lot, and he did. You watch them push the ball down the field in the second half. He put up over 300 yards passing, but it definitely felt like the game was moving a tick fast for him in the first 2.5 quarters, and I wonder how much it has to do with the game planning. I don't know if it was a look-ahead game with the bye week coming up and then the big matchup against Washington, but it did feel like things were moving a bit fast for Julian, and I think I would tend, especially with the way the offense looked, it definitely looked less vanilla than the past 2 weeks. It just felt like maybe they put a little bit more on his plate than he was ready for in that first week, but also an opportunity for him to learn a ton from that experience.
I want to be able to laugh about the Grambling interception. Like it's like a funny fluke thing. And like I can laugh about it as long as you don't have 2 picks the next week, because then it's like a little bit patterny. I thought the first pick against Grambling was not first pick. First pick against Ohio was fluky. I thought the second pick, he could have just taken the sack there. I just take the sack and don't try to do too much. But if I know anything about Ryan Day, it's that he will make sure that we are going to take care of the football. So honestly, it's almost good to see him try those two things for Washington because that makes me feel like, okay, it's not going to happen against Washington because I know how Ryan Day is and I know how things work. I think you said it earlier. Good time to put something bad on tape. Ryan will get it figured out. My confidence, real quick, 1 to 10 heading into Big Ten play, a 10. What's yours?
Right there with you. I still
Good.
think this is the best team in the country, and they're only getting, and that is the most exciting thing about the Buckeyes. We have found this interesting balance of finding things that they can correct week in and week out, but
Yep.
still having peaceful, fun games to watch. And the Buckeyes get it done again with another big victory over Ohio.
Bingo. Get us out of here, Ron.
You know how this thing ends. It's always go Bucks. And of course, OH.
I-O.